My boyfriend has been lying to me. Hello everyone, my name is Diane Harris. I have recently discovered that my entire relationship has been a fabrication, not the cheeky, haha, quirky kind of hiccup. This is a big one. I guess I'll just start off by saying I am not suicidal. I've never thought about harming myself, nor have I been diagnosed with any type of mental illness. What I'm about to tell you is my recounting of what I believed to be a healthy, loving relationship. But as I learned last week, was nothing more than a case of lonely girl falls into the clutches of a complete and utter psychopath. Derek was 25 when we first met. I had graduated high school a year prior, and I hate to admit, I was more impressionable than I should have been. When we first laid eyes on each other at that frat party, it was like all noise stopped. It was just me and him, completely entranced by one another. He stood alone, which I thought was a bit strange. He just sort of hung around the kitchen, fixing himself a drink after we finally broke eye contact. I, however, couldn't stop myself from glancing at him, no matter how hard I tried. His curly hair and shadowy beard did wonders for my imagination, so much so that just watching him as he made his drink made my stomach do flip-flops. Ah, and his eyes, they were smoldering, a piercing blue that stabbed my heart like an arrow from Cupid himself. Terrified to make the first move, it was as though an unspoken prayer was answered when Derek confidently strutted in my direction holding not one, but two drinks. I'm no idiot. I know not to accept drinks from strangers. I think my hesitation must have been apparent in my face because, once he noticed, he sort of cocked an eyebrow at me and smirked. You think I'm gonna drug you? I don't drug, sweetie, I chug. Those were his exact words before he took a swig from both glasses and extended one back in my direction. If you're unconscious, we're both unconscious. Let's hope there aren't any weirdos at this party, he said with a grin. This earned a chuckle out of me and immediately set my mind at ease. We sat together on the sofa and chatted for about an hour before things turned personal. My friends approached us, informing me that they would be leaving soon, and that if I wanted to do the same, I'd better pack it up with my little boyfriend. I waved them off, telling them that I'd Uber home if need be. They nodded, telling me to text them if I needed anything, and after about half an hour, I couldn't see them around the party anymore. Derek started asking me where I grew up, how I ended up at the party, what school I attended, all things that I just thought were normal. I explained to him that I grew up in town, was invited to the party by some girlfriends who wanted to help me get over a pretty traumatic breakup, and that I attended the community college at the edge of our county. The entire time I spoke, all he did was smile and nod his head. He was an amazing listener, and that only made my attraction for him grow. By the time I was finished with all of my personal exposition, he sort of cocked his head back and laced his fingers behind it. Just the way it's supposed to be, isn't it? He murmured. I was sure I'd misheard him, so I politely asked him to repeat himself. Just this moment in time, you know. Every decision you've ever made has brought you to this moment, here, on this couch with me. His eyes scanned the ceiling as he said this, as though he were searching for meaning in the support beams. I'd been in college long enough to understand speech, so I asked him if he'd been smoking. I don't smoke. Do you have any idea what that does to your lungs? I mean, I'm sure you do. You look like you were one of the smart kids in class. This comment turned me off a little. It just seemed, I don't know, dismissive. I subtly leaned away from him on the sofa, prompting him to respond in a way that earned my trust back immediately. I didn't mean that in any kind of assumption way, or anything like that. I just meant you articulate yourself well. You give off that vibe, you know, that aura of intelligence. I couldn't hide my smile or the stars in my eyes that this comment had created, and I know he picked up on it. As I was saying, you and me, here on this couch, you don't think that's a little bit cosmically aligned? I mean, you saw me. I saw you. You didn't reject my drink or my conversation. Why don't we see if there's a spark? A spark? I questioned. With a drunk guy I met at a frat party. Odds are low, buddy. Odds are real low. I sort of flirtatiously shoved his arm, and we shared a little laugh before he responded. Only thing I'm drunk on is la vie, sweetheart. Let's say we make a toast. He smirked. Fuck it, fuck it, fuck it, fuck it. His eyes teased me. His lips begged me. His slightly drunk body language immersed me. You know what? Fuck it. Let's see what happens. I announced before slowly leaning in closer towards him. His hand found its way to my cheek, and before I knew it, Derek and I were 15 minutes into a makeout session on some random frat house sofa. He began getting a little handsy, but I allowed it on account of me being a bit tipsy myself. We were both just so engulfed in the experience. The only thing that snapped us out of it was when a characteristically frat bro a voice called out from across the room. Don't wet your panties on my sofa, girl in the community college hoodie. That goes for you too, old guy at the frat party. We pulled away from each other, both embarrassed, and were greeted by what seemed to be every pair of eyes glaring directly into our souls. I hated that frat guy. I hated him for how he made us feel in that instant. Durek saved us, however, when he cried out, "I swear to Jody." I thought this was my house, as he drunkenly stumbled to his feet and took me by the hand. "Come on, Diane," he chirped. "Let's find the right house." I giggled a bit, allowing him to guide me through the crowd of people and out the door. At this point, I was definitely feeling the effects of the alcohol as I stumbled down the street, Durek catching me and supporting my flails with a firm grasp. I'm not sure when we arrived at his house, but when we did, we were almost animalistic. It had actually taken me a few months to feel comfortable with a man after what had happened with my ex, but this night I had completely allowed myself to be free. Durek and I kissed sloppily as we tore each other's clothes off, climbing the stairs without breaking the moment. Sex wasn't nonkin. Sensual. I may have been intoxicated, but I knew I wanted it, and so did Durek. After our hot and bothered session, we fell asleep in each other's arms and I had a dreamless night. When I awoke the next morning, Durek snored beside me on his unmade bed. My head throbbed from my hangover, and I felt a deep sense of regret from having slept with a man I'd only met the day prior. As quiet as a church mouse, I gathered my belongings and slowly crept out of Durek's front door, silently praying he wouldn't wake up and force me into an awkward position. Thankfully, that didn't happen. I simply hailed a cab and did my walk of shame directly through my own front door. I'd been pretty behind on some school assignments because of a depression that I was only just now coming out of, so I decided that I would use the day as a sort of catch-up day to ensure I didn't crash and burn. Throwing my headphones on and opening my laptop, I was soon fully immersed in the world of business management and Excel. I tend to focus pretty hard on studying and assignments when it's time for it, and because of that fact coupled with the fact that I had radio head blaring in my headphones, I could hardly make out the sound of the pounding that came from my front door. Surely enough, the knocking cut through my focus eventually, and I begrudgingly walked to my door, ready to tell off whatever salesman or Jehovah's Witness that had the audacity to be banging on my door like they were the police. I swung the door open and was greeted by Durek, standing there, smile wide as can be with roses in one hand and a box of chocolates in the other. I didn't have time for this, cliché. I hissed before attempting to shut the door. Durek's foot shot into the crack of my front door, and he pleaded with all of the sincerity in the world. Wait, please just listen to me for a second. I really liked you, you know. I wasn't just bluffing to get you into bed last night. You could have told me you wanted to leave. I would have called you a cab myself. Just give me a sober chance. Let's get to know each other on a normal level rather than a drunk one. Opening the door ever so slightly to peek my head at him, I found it hard to resist his clumsy smile, even as a sober woman. Listen, you seem sweet. I love the enthusiasm, but I've got a lot of schoolwork to do. I'll talk to you, lad. Durek cut me off. Dinner tonight, anywhere you want. I just want to get the chance to know the real you. See if there's a real spark, and I want you to want the same for me. I pondered for a moment, staring down at my welcome mat. I don't want a fancy dinner. Let's go to the park. We can walk the trails, and maybe you'll get to dinner eventually. Done, absolutely. Now here, he pleaded, take these chocolates before they melt. It's like 90 degrees out here. I did as he asked, and before I could shut the door behind me, he slipped one last question in. Wait, what time should I pick you up? 6. If you're late, you blow it. And with that, he shot me a smile and saluted me cartoonishly before the door finally shut in his face. I should have recognized that I hadn't given him my address. I should have realized that this man knew where I lived without me saying anything more than I'm from here in town. Instead, all I felt were butterflies. I tried to hide it to his face, but inside I was absolutely melting. Not only did he manage to pick my favorite flower, sunflowers, but he'd also picked the chocolates that were exclusively cherry-filled. Maybe he is someone special, I thought to myself, remembering his speech about cosmic alignment. Dialing myself back, I returned to my computer until 5:00. I'll admit I wanted to look good, not try, hard good but decent. Feminine, you know. I did a bit of makeup and chose some subtly charming earrings that dangled loosely from my earlobes. I knew we were going to be going to the park, so I knew I couldn't dress casual, and resorted to some jean shorts and a crop top before dabbing my neck with some Givenchy perfume and slipping on my tennis shoes. 6 o'clock rolled around, and the moment it did, 3 light knocks came from my front door. I opened it, and Durek's eyes lit up as though he were in the presence of an angel. He told me how beautiful I looked and took me by the hand, guiding me to his vehicle. We actually talked, efficiently, on the way to the park. He was a sparkling conversationalist, and there was never a low point in what we talked about. Arriving at the park, we obviously jumped straight into our walk, and the conversation persisted. We jumped from topic to topic. He told me about his job in digital security, about his interests, what his plans for the future were, etc. Eventually, the conversation moved into the topic of my ex-boyfriend. At this point, I had already subconsciously began trusting Durek and felt that sharing some secrets with him wouldn't hurt, Yeah, he was definitely not safe. I muttered softly, not safe how? Derek replied, curious. He did things that I don't like to talk about. Without missing a beat, Derek replied with a look, Diane, I know we don't have that much history yet, but you can tell me whatever's on your heart. I'm here to listen, get to know you, remember. I thought for a moment, dozens of ugly memories flooding my head like a sickness. He hit me a few times. I don't think he was ever really taught any better. His dad abused his mom, and I think that made him think it was okay. He's been out of my life for a while now. I just really want to put the whole thing behind me. That's why I'm here with you, Mr. Rebound. Guy, I chuckled. Derek didn't laugh. He didn't even smirk. Instead, his jaw tightened and his face looked flush as he gritted his teeth. You all right there, bud? I asked jokingly. He didn't respond right away, letting silence linger in the air for an uncomfortable amount of time before finally uttering one single sentence. No real man would ever put his hands on a woman like you. He seems to froth at the mouth as he said this, like he was suppressing a deep, deep rage. You mean no real man would ever put hands on a woman, period, right? In an instant the color returned to his face and light returned to his eyes as he perked up. Oh yes, I mean sorry. That's not what I meant. I meant I just couldn't. I stepped in front of him and placed a hand on his chest. I know what you meant, silly. Don't worry. He looked relieved at this and even blushed a little from his apparent internal frustration. We went back to walking, and as a little sign of reassurance, I grabbed his hand and held it tightly as we walked together. There was some scattered chit-chat here and there between the two of us from that point on, but I think we both were mostly just enjoying the embrace and atmosphere. Once we reached the end of the trail, we turned around and went straight back from whence we came. Approaching his car, I noticed that Derek was, smiling and trying to hide it. Unfortunately for him, there was no hiding anything from me in this moment. What's got you grinning over there? I asked casually. He responded in a way that made my heart stop beating and melt all at once. I'm just so happy to be here with you. I've really enjoyed this time we've had together, and I hope we can do it again sometime. I really like you, Diane. I've enjoyed this time together too, Derek, and as much as it pains me to admit, I think I like you too. I replied with a slight smile. On the car ride home, he nervously asked me if I'd be his girlfriend. And I said yes. We arrived back at my house, and I invited him in for a movie and snacks. There was no intimacy. He simply let me lay on his lap as we watched Inside Out 2 and munched on popcorn. I ended up falling asleep halfway through the movie, and when I awoke, I heard Derek upstairs shuffling around. I wrapped myself in the blanket we'd been using and slowly crept up the stairs to see what he was doing, only for him to pop out from behind the corner at the top and announce, "It's not what IT looks like. You got a bathroom in here anywhere," jokingly. I pointed him in the direction of the bathroom, and when he returned, I let him know that it was getting late and it was probably time for him to start heading home. He seemed hesitant, which worried me. But in the end, he did end up going home. However, not before I finally garnered the sense to ask him how he knew where I lived. You told me, remember, at the party. We were talking about it for like 20 minutes. I thought about that for a moment. I mean, I could have. I didn't really remember a lot from that night other than what I'm recalling here. My address. I questioned, well, no. But you did tell me you lived in the blue house on Maple Street, Derek. Every house is blue. Well, why do you think the chocolates were melting? I had to find your house through sheer willpower. You never even gave me a phone number. That makes sense, right? I mean, after all that he'd done just to get my attention. I didn't doubt for a second that he'd gone door to door until he found the door. Too tired to question him further, I thanked him for a nice night and sent him on his way, providing him with a nice kiss on the lips to hold him over until we saw each other again. The next few months were filled with laughs, love, memories, and a kind of melancholic ache that was brought on by the news of my ex-boyfriend's suicide. I hated the man. I, more than anyone, wanted him dead. But I'd still loved him once. There was still that quiet tingling in my brain that made me want to cry thinking about what had happened. He'd hung himself in his parents' garage, leaving a note that blamed nobody but himself. It stung. It hurt worse, in my opinion, that I had to find the news out through social media, where his picture circulated across mutual friends' accounts who told him to fly high and to rest easy. I cried. I can admit that I cried, and I think that's when the cracks started forming. Derek seemed annoyed that I was affected. I understand. He was an ex-boyfriend who abused me. But why? Why could I not feel emotion during a time like this? His voice grew colder. His smile came less frequently. He seemed personally offended that I had been upset over something he classified as deserved. At this point, I'd already given 6 months of my time to this man, and my heart belonged to him entirely. I'd learned to shrug off his passiveness, his random outbursts, but our relationship became incredibly rocky when he began punching walls like a child. That I didn't find cute nor attractive, and I told him that. He'd just look at me with those puppy eyes and apologize with a sincerity I don't even think Shakespeare could capture. I wanted to escape, but he just kept roping me back in with his manipulation and love bombing. Argument, here's flowers, but no change. Durick's annoyed. I better be a cushion to his anger, or else I'm the bad guy. I was trapped. For months this went on, and my Stockholm syndrome grew more and more with each bout of passive aggression. One day, while drunk, Durick let something slip that I'll never forget. He was sitting on the couch, feet propped up on my coffee table, and absolutely out of nowhere, completely unprovoked, he talked not to me but at me. You know, it's good that your ex is gone. He's caused enough tears. Why give him more? I couldn't do it. I decided to stay at my mother's that night, leaving my OWN home. When I returned, Durick was nowhere to be found. However, a note left on the table informed me that he had gone to the bar and wouldn't be back till late. I couldn't help but feel relieved at this. I needed it, desperately, and I slept better that night than I had since. I couldn't even remember when. The next few weeks were awkward, at best. A switch in Durick's mind seemed to have been flipped, and I couldn't even get more than 2 words out of him at a time. My heart was breaking all over again, and I felt utter shame ripple through my body at the realization that I had allowed this to happen. I began to rewire my brain, convincing myself that none of this was worthy of my time. Not Durick, not the manipulation, not the love bombing, none of it. As if answered by some bizarre cosmic joke, the line was completely severed last week. Durick and I had been living in the same house, but were 2 distant strangers. My days were spent inside, trying to manage school and sanity. His days were spent doing God knows what. On this day in particular, though, he had come home earlier than usual with a gift in his hands neatly wrapped and tied with a bow. He offered it to me, and I felt my mind break even further. I made so much progress, and here he was, attempting to destroy it with his stupid gift-giving. I told him that I didn't even want it, but thanked him for thinking about me before turning around and heading towards my bedroom. He didn't say a single word. He just left the gift on the coffee table and was back out the front door before I could notice. Time went on and Durick never returned. Curiosity began to eat at me. His gifts were always extravagant and meaningful, and the thought of what it could be toyed with me. In the late hours of the night, I couldn't sleep, and the curiosity finally broke me as I tiptoed downstairs to take a look at the gift. Tied to the bow with a thread of yarn was a handwritten note that I could tell was written by Durick. It read, Diane, I'm sorry for everything. I hope this brings you peace. Do not look for me. This made my curiosity turn morbid, and ever so slowly I began to unwrap the gift. Inside, I found a brand new MacBook, still in the box. Along with a single USB stick. Connecting the stick to the laptop, a file appeared on screen, simply titled, For Diane. Within the file, I found hundreds, and I mean hundreds of screenshots, my social media. Pictures from before me and Durick became a thing. Photos of me holding sunflowers, a tweet of mine where I said something along the lines of wishing someone would get me some cherry-filled chocolates, snapshots of me and my ex taken from obscure angles. More horrifying were the videos, security footage dated back before me and Durick even knew each other, footage of me at home studying, showering, brushing my teeth, having me time, if you catch my drift. I had never felt more sticky and violated, but still, I continued perusing the file's contents. Buried deep within the screenshots and violations of privacy, I found a longer video, a video with a setting that I recognized only faintly. I clicked on it and was greeted with blurry, pixelated camera footage of what seemed to be a dark, empty room. Suddenly, the lights flicked on, and I came to the horrifying realization of what I was seeing. My ex-boyfriend's garage. Muffled shouting could be heard off camera before Durick marched my ex-boyfriend into the frame, holding a matte black pistol to the back of his head. Without moving the gun, Durick's head turned towards the camera, and he forced ex-boyfriend to speak. Now, go ahead and tell the camera what we rehearsed, Durick demanded, waving the gun in my ex-boyfriend's face. My ex cried. Tears streamed down his face as he struggled to speak. We don't have all day, Tyler. Do it. Tyler turned to the camera with empty eyes and sobbed the words that will haunt my memory forever. I'm doing this for you, Diane. Durick then tossed Tyler a rope, kicked a chair towards him, and demanded he hang himself. Tyler's wails were soul-shattering and terrifying. I could see the will to live in his eyes, the hope on his face that he'd make it out of this. Forced into submission, Tyler slowly climbed up on the chair, slipped the rope around his neck, attached it to the garage door track, and mustered one final plea before Durick kicked the chair for him. I had to cover my mouth to prevent myself from screaming as Tyler flailed, struggling to breathe as he dangled in the air. I didn't have to watch for long, though, as Durick then took the camera, pointed it directly at himself, and spoke words straight into my heart and mind. He can't hurt you anymore, honey. He's the one hurting now. No one will ever hurt you again. The video ended with him laughing this unhinged half-chuckle, half-cry laugh. The screen went to black, and I was left alone in a reality that felt like it was coming apart at the seams. As I said, this all happened last week. The police are now involved, the laptop has been confiscated, and Derek is now a wanted man. Don't ask me where he is, I have no idea. All I know is this man needs to be stopped before this can happen again, and I pray that police catch him while he's still in the state. To Derek, please, please turn yourself in. Running will only make things worse, and you and I both know the only cosmic alignment you'll be facing is from the inside of a jail cell.